me your secrets, show me your nightmares. All cats are gray in the dark, dear, whether or not you dare.
Welcome to All Cats Are Gray in the Dark. I'm your host, April Simmons. This podcast contains true cases of graphic violent crimes and other stories of a dark nature. Please be advised that due to the subject matter and violent, sometimes sexual content and obscene language, this podcast is not for children or the faint of heart.
Hey friends, we want to tell you about Anchor FM. That's what we use. It's free. It's easy to use. You do it right from the phone or the computer. Basically, you can record, edit, create, add some little doodads on there to make it fancy. It has all the tools you need for your very own podcast. And the best part is that they submit it to all the listening apps and stuff for you, so you don't even have to worry about that. And the other part is, it's absolutely free. Yes, free is always my favorite. So go check it out, anchor.fm. Get your own podcast started today. Let's do this.
Oh, there we go.
Is he here? Is he with us?
I am with you.
All right, here we go.
And we're already recording, like as soon as the first guest connects, it starts recording.
So everybody out there is going to have to listen to me and you chat for a little bit before the real podcast starts.
No, I can edit that out.
Okay.
I can edit that 3 minutes of us discussing how this works.
Yeah, cool. That works. Thanks for having us.
Oh, thanks for coming on the show. I saw the ad for the documentary on Facebook, and I immediately said, I've got to get somebody from that on the show because it looked really interesting.
Well, we're glad to be here, man. And John, are you still with us, Johnny?
I am here.
Awesome.
Okay. And see, I'm from Tupelo, so I don't know where are you guys from?
I'm from.
Go ahead, John.
I'm from Madison. Yeah, I'm from Madison, Mississippi.
Okay, so not too far.
No, Tupelo. We actually, my day job, I'm actually a marketing director for several restaurants, and we used to have a fresh market cafe there in that area.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure I've eaten there, but I'm a fat girl, so I've eaten pretty much everywhere.
That's funny.
Well, I'm a fat dude, man. And I've eaten pretty much everywhere too, man. So I understand.
And I guess I should just introduce y'all first off. I got a little bit into it before I started, really. Welcome to the show. This is Brad Cooney and John Bullard, correct?
Right.
That is correct.
Whoa.
And like I said, I saw the trailer for the documentary on Facebook, a Facebook ad, and I immediately was interested in it because we do true crime and we also do some paranormal stuff too. And the fact that it was based in Mississippi really intrigued me. And just for those out there listening that haven't seen the trailer, the documentary is about the Mississippi house in Florence, Mississippi. The owner, Alice Jackson, called on some people to help explain the experiences she had, and they immediately started documenting the house and its unexplainable activities. And I got to say, though, Kendall sent me the link and let me watch the film. And I got to say, I love the fact that whoever chose to open the documentary with the footage of activity, like immediately, that was brilliant because I was like riveted immediately.
Well, it grabs you. Yeah, it really does. It grabs you as soon as it comes on. Just the cinematography is fantastic. Yeah. So Kendall is he's a genius. And also, I know, Brad, we were talking about it, but Corey Frost, the editor, he is, and he does a lot of ESPN sports stuff. He was actually Emmy nominated, correct, Brad?
Yeah, he's nominated for an Emmy for a sports documentary that he did.
But he's incredible. He really, I can't imagine. That's such an art form to take all the hours and minutes of footage that we shot and to just put it together like he did. It's a masterpiece. It really is.
Mm-hmm. So how did y'all first hear about the case?
Well, it wasn't so much. It was really John. Actually, you know what, John? Go ahead and jump in because you got involved 11, 12 years ago on this, and then I'll explain to her how I got involved afterwards.
Right. So I've been in the paranormal field for about 12 years now. It's starting to show my age a little bit. I need to knock that number down. But I stumbled upon Alice's by a friend of a friend. And for the most part, we don't really do, or I didn't really do private residences. I had a couple bad experiences, and a lot of people think their houses are haunted, and there's a lot of rational, scientific explanations that they're not haunted. And we also ran into a couple cases where there was some very bad stuff going on in the house personally, and I didn't want to be a part of it. So we stuck to more like the Liskak's murder house, the Winchester house, Waverly Hills Sanatorium, those places. And I like history and seeing what other people have captured to see what we can throw our hat in the ring, so what we can get. But anyway, I got onto Alice's house, and just from walking in the house, the moment I met her, I could see how concerned she was and how authentic she was. And something happened pretty dramatic the first time I walked into the house. So I knew immediately something got my attention, and this was different. And I've been in that house on and off for 10 years, and I've never, ever investigated a location on and off that long. But the house, it continues to evolve. It's like a puzzle, and there's pieces missing. And we'll find a piece and we get excited, but then it's like 3 more pieces are missing, and they could be attached to what we just found. So it's just continuously, it's the most intriguing location that I've ever stepped foot in.
All right. And then how did you get into it, Brad?
So for me, I was just actually watching TV one day, just chilling in my house. And this is like a little over 4 years ago. And a local news station did a segment on Alice's house. And of course, I've always been intrigued with paranormal activity and UFOs and Bigfoot research. I'm just kind of weird like that. And so when I heard the TV talking about, a house that was allegedly haunted down in Rankin County. Well, I live in Rankin County, so it perked my interest. So I started paying attention to it. And I saw an interview on the show with a girl named Erin, who's also in the film. And so I actually was really intrigued because it was close to my house. I mean, I only live like 20 minutes away from the house. So I found that girl Erin on Facebook, and I reached out to her and asked her if she can set me up with a time where I can go down there and meet Alice and check out this house. So long story short, I ended up doing that. And my first day in the house, there was so much activity. It was just, I wasn't mentally prepared for it. It was just crazy how much stuff happened in just a matter of minutes of me being in there. And I've been hooked ever since. I haven't looked back. It's 4 years later. We're still investigating it.
Mm-hmm. I actually have done ghost hunting in the past myself. And that's part of the reason why I started this podcast, that and just a interest in that sort of thing, and also true crime. But you had mentioned, John, that, doing ghost hunting, a lot of residents are really difficult because people are convinced it's haunted, whether it really is that or not.
Right.
So I totally get that, because I tell people, because people think, oh, you used to do ghost hunting. That's so exciting. Tell me about it. I'm like, 99% of it is just sitting there,
exactly,
documenting. And it's so boring, and people don't understand, because most of it is really, really boring. There's not constant activity. And then you have homeowners that you try to tell them that it's their plumbing making that sound at night. And then they're like, F you,
yeah.
Like they don't like it.
Funny you mentioned that, because I was just telling somebody recently that I had a lady reach out to me a couple years ago, and she asked me for my opinion on some video that she shot in her house, and she thought maybe it was some paranormal activity. So I was like, all right, let me see it. And I don't know about you guys, but my inbox just blows up on Facebook about everybody's house is haunted. Everybody lives in a haunted house. And, and I'm trying to be patient and kind with everybody, because it's important to be kind to people. But it kind of gets redundant sometimes. So I just reluctantly agreed to look at it. And it was clearly a bug that flew in front of the IR camera. I mean, it was definitely a bug. So don't forget, she asked me for my opinion on this. So when I told her what my opinion was, now she wants to start arguing with me for like 20 or 30 minutes. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, all right, well, you asked me.
Well, and I'll throw a funny story in real quick as well. So we did a newscast years ago with Darren Dito was his name. He worked for WAPT, and he got an award of some kind. He used to do paranormal investigating back in like the 90s, early 2000s. He would do little highlights like King's Tavern and Natchez and stuff around Mississippi. And he had a location he wanted us to go check out. So it was him and his cameraman. We met him. It was somewhere in Brandon, and we were just going to do a little story. It was around Halloween time. We got there. This place was so run down. It was a trailer under power lines. And this guy was like 450 pounds, and the wife was like 80 pounds. And the trailer that they took us through was like the most disgusting place you've ever seen. I just stared at Darren and I'm like, we have to get the hell out of here. Like, this is absolutely terrible. So he claims the ghost picked up his wife and threw her against the fence. And I'm like, I think he had some bourbon and I think he might be the ghost. So I was like, we need to go ahead and piece out of this. So I was like, and the cameraman, his face, he didn't want to be there in the first place because he was not into the supernatural. But after we got there, he was just like an owl, just staring at us like, you guys are crazy. So we got out of there as quick as possible.
Yeah. And you'd also mentioned the Winchester House. I've actually been there too. Not as an official ghost hunting capacity, just tourist. And I love that place. It is so gorgeous and so weird. It's hard to even explain to people because I didn't experience any activity while I was there, but it just has a weird vibe to it. Like, you cannot explain it.
It's a beautiful house. I put that on a bucket list. Whether you're a paranormal enthusiast or you just want to see like a historical landmark, to me that's like going to a museum or seeing the Golden Gate Bridge or something like that. That house is so unique. It's just something that I think everybody should experience. And we actually didn't get much stuff while we were there. We were only allotted a very short time, and it was during the day. But it was cool to get some recording done in there and say that you've been there to quote unquote investigate it. But such a short time, like you said, you sat there for hours and hours on end. A lot of ghost hunting is very boring, so it takes a lot of time and patience to capture some good evidence.
Exactly. And you also mentioned King's Tavern, which is in Mississippi, and we did talk about another episode. I did actually take an EMF meter into King's Tavern once, and it was off the charts. EMF meter going off like crazy. And I also have to just mention that it has really good food too.
Oh man,
they do.
They got the best chicken pot pie like in the country. I don't know if you've ever had it there or not, but their food is fantastic.
So when that was actually the first location that that's the first location we actually officially did in 2008. And when we started going there, Tom Drinkwater was the guy's name, which I'll never forget that name because it's so odd. But they were doing like the King's cut steaks and stuff back then. But now the food's even better than it was back in the day. But King's Tavern, it is such a unique place. We did Ghost Adventures episode when they did King's Tavern there years back. And I have investigated that place probably 15 different times. That was one of our hot spots because that was the first time I actually had a true experience. So when I was a child, and I'm not a medium, I think people do have that ability, but I think there's a lot of people who BS that. I'll use that language. But
I think I'm sensitive myself. Like, I've experienced a lot of things throughout my life, so I call myself a sensitive, but I hesitate to use the word psychic because people look at you like you grew a third head.
Yeah,
right, exactly. So what I coined my phrase is I call it a peek through the veil is how I explain it to people. And I can see shadow figures, and sometimes I can hear the spirit voice. So I can hear an EVP without having any gadgets, gear, or anything on me. And I have video footage of that documented where I'll react because it's somebody whispering in my ear, and it shocks you. But nobody else around you can hear it. But it just happens every now and then. It's not like I can hold it or anything like that. But King's Tavern, it is such a heavy feeling in that building. And that's the only location, like whenever I would leave King's Tavern, and this sounds weird, but I would get like agitated the next few days because I wanted to go back. Like, I didn't want to leave. Like, I got mad when I had to leave.
Yeah. I got lost on my. We went off on a tangent.
That's all good. We're just chilling. We're just talking.
Question. I was actually going to ask if y'all were believers or skeptic beforehand on this case, but I think we kind of already covered that. And had you experienced paranormal activity before? Which I think we done, but we didn't really get to that with you, Brad.
I think that I think that there are some legit psychics. I think, honestly, I think the majority of them are not, but I do think that there's some that have an ability. So I'm not a complete full-blown skeptic on psychics. I'm just not real sold on all of them, if that makes sense. As far as paranormal activity previous to getting involved with this house 4 years ago, I really haven't. However, I was in the Navy and I've seen some really crazy things in the sky before. Two really interesting UFO encounters. In fact, one of them I saw in Mississippi back in July of, that's probably like, I think it was 13, and I actually reported it to MUFON, and they gave me a case number and a caseworker to work, and they actually did a whole case on it because I got video of it, and I sent them the video too. So that was pretty cool. But as far as paranormal experiences, I haven't had any until I walked in Mississippi House, and I caught up for lost time on that. That's for sure.
Yeah, you're like a spoiled kid, Brad. Because you came into like one of the best locations. You're an asshole.
Exactly.
What is like one detail about this whole case that made it more believable to you personally?
For me or John? Is that to me or John?
Both of you.
Who wants to go? John, you want to go? You go first, John.
I get to go first. I've had so many different things happen to us. So one of my favorite things that I do and what I've really practiced over the years is I love audio. I love EVPs, which is obviously electronic voice phenomena. And I use analog and I use digital as well. So see if you can capture it on both, or if you capture it on one device, why don't you capture it on the other, this, that, and the other. And you asked the question, do you believe in the paranormal? Or are you skeptic or not? Throughout the 12 years that I've been doing this, I definitely believe there's something communicating with us just because of the audio that I've captured. And I never want to try to change anybody's mind, but if you listen to some of the audio and the EVPs that I've captured over the years, and especially in this house, if it's not fake, then you have to have a conversation of what it is. Now, you may not believe it's paranormal. You may believe it's demonic or whatever you want to say, but you have to acknowledge that there is something that's directly responded to you, talking to you, calling you by name. So audio is one of my favorite things, and I am long-winded, but I think some of the audio that's in this house, direct responses to exactly what we're doing at that time, calling our names individually. And there's two dominant spirits in the house. There's a male and a female, and there's other stuff going on as well. But just like your fingerprints are unique, your vocal tone is unique as well. So nobody has the same vocal tone. And we actually have software throughout the years where we can track and measure vocal tones. And we've got the same patterns on this male and this female throughout the years in the house.
Wow, that's impressive. Brad, how about you? What's a detail that made this story believable to you?
Well, the things I've encountered, there's things defy physics in this house. And, really, I tell people to go watch the trailer because there's a couple things in the trailer that really shows what the house can do. But for me, like direct response EVPs, for sure. I mean, having your name called out, getting EVP responses that are within context of what you're talking about, direct responses, getting multiple direct responses to lights, like asking them to shut lights off. And I'm not talking about flashlights. I'm talking about like a chandelier light, and it shuts off on cue. Not 100% of the time, but like enough to make me very interested. Just seeing objects move that shouldn't move. Things that don't happen in my house happen there, and I've just seen so much of it in 4 years. It's 100%. I'm 100% convinced.
And I really appreciated the scientific approach taken with the documentary.
Yeah, for sure.
Can y'all tell the audience a little bit about all the links y'all went to get as much proof as possible?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, so what and thank you for noticing that. And I think that's why we're so proud of this film, is because there's been a lot of paranormal stuff done, but not a lot of people have mixed in as much science as we have done. And how this process started was, we know Steve from Ghost Hunters, Ghost Nation. If your people were listening and they watch Paranormal, they know who Steve is because he's one of the original OGs. He was on one of the first Ghost Hunter shows, and very intelligent guy. But Steve is very matter of fact. And like Brad and me have this term, it's called the Steve filter. So we always say, is it going to pass the Steve filter? Because he is very hard nosed. Even while we were recording the documentary, there was stuff that me and him verbally went back and forth on. Physically, he would probably win. But anyway, and I knew it was authentic evidence, but it just wasn't to his standards, so it was thrown out. There's so much that was thrown out, but I'm glad that we did it the way we did it now.
Yeah.
And, we wanted to put the house to the test. We know what we have. We know it's authentic. We know it's a true haunting, and it's very, very consistent. So we brought him in, and as soon as he got there the first time, it's almost like the house works for us and reacts for us, because this was a big moment to have this guy come from all the way up north down here, and he doesn't fly. He has a phobia of flying, so he drives everywhere. So he drove all the way to Mississippi, and he wasn't there very long, but the house reacted. And a few days later, I think he contacted Brad again and said, "Hey, I'm scratching my head. This is bothering me. I can't figure it out. I need to come back."
Exactly.
So he came back, and then the house was like, "Okay, let's go." And then at that point, he's like, "Look, this is a case. This is like a true crime case story, And we kind of dove into it. And, it just kind of built. This started out small, but as things continued to happen in the small batch of time that they were in there, he just couldn't let it go. And I don't know if this is okay to say or not, Brad, but I will. Originally, we didn't know if Steve was just going to be the executive producer or if he was going to be in the documentary a little bit. But as the story unfolded, nobody had a choice. The house kind of pulls everybody in, and it's really the main character of the documentary.
Yep, I agree.
But yeah, I appreciated like the experiments with the ball on the stairs and the magnets and also, even something as simple as getting the house level checked and the electrical and everything, because that if someone had watched the documentary and you had not done that, then that's what some skeptics are going to say. They're going to say, the problem with the electrical, that's why the lights are going out.
And Steve stamping his reputation on this, so he was not going to let any of that go. And by the way, they didn't tell us any of this stuff. Like, they just showed up, and I'm not going to go into too much detail, but they showed up with the things that they did inside the house to test it. And, they were going to catch us off guard. They didn't know if we were full of crap or not, because, are there wires, are there triggers, this, that, and the other? They don't know. And Steve's not going to put his reputation on the line and invest his time for something that's a hoax. So, but we knew what we had. We know how authentic this house is. So we thought, who better to put it to the test? Let's bring Steve in. Let's bring some experts in. Let's have physicists. Let's have scientists. Let's do everything. Like, give us a rational explanation of what's going on in this house. And unfortunately, they couldn't do it, which is kind of fortunate, because now we're more intrigued.
Hey, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to give you an all cats exclusives on some information. So I've never said this in any other interviews or anybody before, but just to build on John's point about Steve and how methodic he and both Kendall were to debunk and to make sure, because don't forget, when we first started doing this, they didn't really know us. They don't know us. So then they have, they're both very reputable in the field. Kendall's very, very well loved, and his work speaks for itself. Of course, Steve's been, on TV forever. So they came down, and I'm going to tell you something that I haven't told anybody before. So the house is wired up, and there's cameras in every room in that house except for the bathrooms. So I can monitor live shots from my house with the app. I'm on my phone, and I'm the person that really scours through the video in this house. Trying to find things that moved, and I'll pull video and we'll upload it. And one night I was going through some video, looking at playback, and I saw Steve and Kendall. This is when they were down here shooting. I saw Steve and Kendall. They were like walking through the rooms, and they're like patting on the walls or up on a chair. They're like checking the chandelier lights, and they're like tapping on the ceiling. And what I believe that they were doing, I've never even asked them about it, but they were still looking for things that could be put in there to as props to fake evidence. And I was like, but I felt good about that, though. I was like, that's good. They need to do that because we're not hiding anything. But the fact that they went through those lengths, it's really telling. They didn't want to come down here into a fraud. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They were making sure that they hedged their bets on it not being a hoax. and that's understandable.
100%, 100% understandable.
And I mentioned that I had done ghost hunting before, but I had actually never seen the REM pods. Can y'all explain what the REM pods do?
Go ahead, John.
Brad, you're throwing me
Well,
off.
I mean, I can take it.
No, you're good. So the REM pod. So what's neat about the REM pod and paranormal gear in general has evolved. So like even in 2008 when it first started, I mean, the K2 was like the thing to go to. But the problem with that is it does work, but so many things around give you false readings, like Wi-Fi, your cell phone. It's so sensitive.
Uh-oh.
Oh, did you drop?
John, you dropped out, John.
Okay. Are you back?
John must be having some connection issues, but I can pick up. Hopefully he'll come back. Do you want me to pick up where he left off? You want to wait, give him a minute?
Just go ahead and pick up where he left off if you can.
Yeah, so basically REM pods are and like he was saying, technology is evolving so fast that REM pods are starting to become I wouldn't say obsolete, but they're almost becoming a antique's too strong of a word, but there's technology embedded in REM pods because REM pods can be manipulated with cell phones. Sometimes light switches, if you turn them on or off, can trigger a REM pod, but they're okay though. I mean, I've used them for on and off for years. Basically, it just picks up any energy that breaches there's like an invisible like force field around them things, and you have to have an antenna. And if you wave your finger, even within a 16th of an inch of that antenna, it'll set off all the alarms. So any kind of energy, whether it's radiation, RF energy, that intrudes, comes through that little field around that REM pod, sets it off. So in theory, spirits in theory can use energies to manifest things. And so if spirit energy goes through or past that REM pod, it alerts us. It sets off all the lights and the alarms.
All right, and I'm back. Sorry.
There you go. Okay, good deal.
So yeah, and the REM pod is almost like a Simon. I don't know what you said, but it's almost like a Simon Says as the energy gets more intense. Obviously, you're picking up something, but it's a true tool in the paranormal field, and as well as like the Mel meter, which it's a really cool backstory behind that. But it's like a Swiss Army knife of the paranormal. But there's definitely gadgets and tools that have evolved and actually gives us a lot more credibility. And they're becoming more scientific tools than just, hokey paranormal things that we kind of think work. And there's a lot of stuff out there that people buy that's all like, got wires and lights and stuff. It looks cool, but you got to use the things that actually you can document and actually make a difference, because you need to know what's going on with your surroundings. And obviously you have your body, which is one of the most important things to use, which I always say, but there's definitely some good tools out there now.
And one thing I do like about REM pods, though, if you can get a pattern, like if you can start communication, like hey, if you're in here, if there's a spirit in here, walk in front of that REM pod, and then all of a sudden it goes off, and you start getting direct responses, the REM pods have a lot more credibility. Or if you get like multiple going off at the same time, and like, so it has to be a pattern or really intense REM pod activity for me to be signed off on it. I'm not as bad as Steve as far as the filter goes, but I got to see patterns and things before I'm it piques my interest.
Cool. I have to ask, did y'all feel a little self-conscious about the part of the documentary that kind of delves into UFOs and interdimensional beings? Because while I am at least I guess I'm not as skeptical as some people would be, but I'm still, iffy on that activity. So did it make y'all feel a little bit weird for them to include that, or
Brad,
were y'all
I'll go
cool
first
with
real
that?
quick. So I think that it's neat because the fact that this is one of the most documented cases in the world and is in Mississippi. So I think it kind of ties into the Mississippi brand of the film. And it goes back to Alice, what really set her off and what really, projected her to the level of, to me, so uncomfortable was the lights that she saw. And she didn't know, she thought paranormal, but also she thought UFO, extraterrestrial. So I think with what happened to her and this whole genre that we're in, and it being based in Mississippi and how big that case was, I think it ties in well together. If it wasn't so Mississippi driven and kind of fit with the story, I think it would be awkward. But because of all that surrounded, I think it fits.
As for me, I was okay with it. I do believe in UFOs because, like I said earlier, I've seen a couple things that I can't explain. So I didn't really have a problem with it because it kind of fits with what, like John was saying, what Alice saw. Because honestly, what Alice saw, I've never been able to see the same thing she said she saw in my 4 years, and in John's 11 or almost 12 years in there, he's had one time where his camera equipment did pick up a really bright light in there, but it wasn't as prolific as what Alice experienced. So this is just my opinion here. The thing that Alice saw with the lights and the beam of light and the other object that looked like a space heater that was, shooting out balls of light, that to me leans away from like spirit activity, in my opinion. If I would have saw something like that, I wouldn't be thinking ghosts. I would be thinking maybe interdimensional or extraterrestrial. I mean, that's me if I would have experienced that. So it was almost, the producers and the directors, because of what Alice experienced, is almost obligated to look at that part of it. And I think that's why it was in the film. So I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I just wanted to ask about that in particular because I know that some people would be even more skeptical than, say, with ghost stories and stuff about those types of things. What was the biggest what the fuck or scary moment you individually experienced? And while watching the documentary, the big what the fuck moment for me was the fire alarm thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, that goosebumps.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I don't want to get into too many specifics of what happened in the film because we want the people to watch the film. And but I will say this, for me, this is going to sound crazy. I've had two experiences in there that really like gave me that what the fuck you're talking about. One of them was paranormal, we believe, and one of them wasn't. The one that was a night me and a buddy of mine was in there. His name's Donnie. He's a former Pearl police officer. And we had a really crazy experience upstairs. We were downstairs actually eating Burger King at the dining room table one night. We figured, let's go get some food real quick. We'll eat and then we'll set up and we'll start investigating. But while we were eating the food, we heard voices. I mean, we heard like chatter, not just one voice. It sounded like there was 5 or 6 people up there chattering. And so, I mean, it stopped me right in mid hamburger bite. And we're like looking at one another like, what the fuck is that? And the voices started to fade off a little bit. And without getting into any much more details, a lot of things happened after that that's in the film, so I don't want to get into too many details on that. But the other one was me and Eileen were in there one night, and we didn't know that Alice had like some guests. She had some guests over the night before, and she had a cooler that was filled with ice, and she had it in the dining room, in the living room area. And I had no idea there was ice in this thing. I mean, I didn't even look in there or whatever. So we were investigating one night, and we had a lot of activity. So we were a little bit on edge because some things happened that were just, you know how it is. You used to investigate, so your adrenaline gets kind of pumped up. So we were standing in the living room one night, and we didn't know it, but the ice that was in the cooler that we had no idea was in there, I guess the room temperature got warm enough to where the ice melted, and like the whole wall of it collapsed inside the cooler. And it really, I mean, it sounded like a bomb went off. It was so loud in there. I mean, it scared the shit out of us. I mean, like Eileen literally jumped and wrapped her legs around me, and I almost pulled a hamstring because I jumped straight up in the air. It was pretty freaking scary, to be honest with you, because not expecting a loud noise like that, especially when your adrenaline's so fired up.
John, do you have one?
I'll speak to exactly what you said briefly, but I'm not going to go into much, like Brad said. But to what you mentioned about the fire alarm, spot on. And to resonate that even larger for you, I've been in that house for a decade investigating, and I can tell you this: It's never done that in the entire time I've ever been in the house. So
Yep.
me watching that gave me the biggest holy shit moment. I'm like, no way. Like, because I've been there for 10 years. Like, what the hell? That doesn't, I mean, no. But yes, to answer, that's insane. But I've had a lot of personal experiences in the house that are oh shit moments. One that I'll throw out there real quick. And this is early years. This is probably 2010, 2011. I had my 4 camera DVR system in the house, and we would do it for 2 or 3 days, and I'd pull the footage and I'd backtrack 2 or 3 days. Uh, and I had a buddy with me that would help rearrange the cameras because he lived a little bit closer. So we were supposed to change him out one night, and I was going to meet him out there around midnight, and he backed out. Something happened. So going in this house by yourself, obviously, this is what you live for. You know, we're in the paranormal. You want to have a paranormal experience, but sometimes there's only so much you can take by yourself. So going into the house at pitch black dark, you know, your guard's up because you know what the house can do. You've experienced so much dramatic stuff in the house that your guard's up. And I went in there to start rearranging the cameras, and I got about 2 cameras in, and I was in the living room area, and down the hallway there was just a loud
Yeah.
a loud whistle. I mean, just down the hallway. So I grabbed my mag light, and I'm not a big guy. I'm like, is there somebody in the house messing with me? And I creeped down the hallway. I was just going to throw the flashlight at whoever it was, hoping that I could just run away. I opened the door, and obviously there was nobody in there. Close the door, and as I'm walking back up, it does it again. And I just, full disclosure, I went ahead and fixed one more camera and I left. You know, there's only so much that you can take by yourself when it's that up in your face. So that definitely stands out for me. I mean, that was like 8 or 9 years ago. So
Yeah. There's been other moments. You know, things that move suddenly that it's not supposed to move. Those are some jump moments. You know, you're just not expecting things to move when physics said they're not supposed to. You know, so there's been so many, I've lost count, but there's been so many things where you have those what the fuck. John, probably that time me and you, that this isn't in the film, so we can talk about this. Me and John were in there one night and saw this crazy. You know how most times when people say they see orbs or they see whatever, it's usually through either they're looking through a cell phone or they're looking at video. Well, me and John saw something with our naked eye in there one night that was pretty crazy. It was a glowing, shiny-looking light anomaly that shot across the room. I mean, right across the room. I saw it in my left peripheral, and John was looking directly at it. And it's, you know, it stopped our sentence because we were just shooting the breeze in there one night, and it stopped us in our tracks. So we were like, "What the hell? You see that?" So that was actually a really cool. It didn't so much scare us, but it was a really cool piece of evidence.
Also, I'm trying not to give away too much in the film, like you said. I'm trying my best, but I do have a question because I saw that there was a priest performing a cleansing at the towards the end of the film. Has that worked?
Well, that what you're alluding to, that was pretty much just as a precaution thing. We've never experienced, as far as I'm concerned, any kind of demons or dark energies. There has been a couple of people that were, John, in fact, was scratched one night, but I don't even think getting a scratch necessarily means it's a dark energy. It just could be a ghost that's trying really hard to get your attention. Is a theory that I look at. But as far as what you brought up, that was kind of a precaution thing, just to bless the house but to your question, it has not reduced any paranormal activity because we have many of active nights in there since that's happened.
I assumed, but I thought I would ask anyway. And also, with the ball falling down the stairs, I noticed that it was happening, at least in the film, that it was happening in the same time period in the afternoon. Was that something that y'all noticed, or were there different times
many different times? John, I'll let you jump in, but many different times, different days, different times of day. No pattern there.
And okay. You know, to kind of snowball that whole thing with the ball. So we've kind of coined the phrase, or I think somebody actually maybe wrote it out in an article that was written on the house, but a spirit training ground. So being in the house for 10 plus years on and off, you know, we would start focusing on something like maybe the chandelier or this doll in the bed or whatever it is. And it didn't happen before, but when we focused our attention and verbalized it and focused our energy on it, you know, to be manipulated or moved or turned off, things specifically started happening that we were, focusing on. So the ball, that sat there for years until we started really focusing on it. Nothing happened. And that's what's so unique about this house. And that's why I literally feel like, we're almost teaching the spirits in this house. And I know that sounds crazy and I get it, but it's reality because it's documented. We've been in there so long. And again, we do use a baseball because they are hard. They should not be moved. Wind and other things should not move them. And they also have stitching on both sides. So we can actually slow the video down and you can actually see stitching move and pivot. So you can see how the ball moves. Is it straight down? Is it twisted before it moves? So that's, that's why we use the ball. But yeah, not really any pattern. But once it finally did it for the first time, that was like mind blown, like absolutely crazy because that's a heavy object. A baseball is not light, so that was pretty dramatic. But once we knew that it could happen, well, then we started asking and focusing, and then boom, it started happening. So it's like we had to verbalize it and specifically work with them to try to do it. It's like you're working with an infant. You're trying to teach them to walk and do stuff like that. And once they can walk, they got it. It's kind of the same thing.
Okay, last official question. After 10 years of monitoring the house, what now? Are y'all going to continue to monitor the house or?
Oh, no question. 100%. I mean, we're forging forward. We finished this film and we hope everybody enjoys it. I think it's, without being biased, I really, really think everybody's going to enjoy this film. But yeah, there's nobody has any intentions on stopping because there's still, things we want to try to figure out.
Yeah, I think we, 10 years is a long time, but definitely when Brad came along, things started moving a lot quicker because he does a great job backtracking the cameras, and we added more cameras, and now we have remote cameras that we have trigger objects set up all over the house because so much would happen. So now when something moves or is manipulated, we can backtrack it and we can actually document it. But I think that the house has a lot more to offer. I think that we've only scraped the surface, and I think if we continue to use the right equipment and we use the right people and ask the right questions, I think that we can build this house even higher than we are right now. I think something groundbreaking truly can be captured in this house. And with a documentary, I'm excited for people to see it. And I'm glad, like you mentioned before, I'm glad we took the science approach and mixed it with the paranormal because I think that really is unique. And in doing something in 2020, it's hard to be unique at anything. So I think that we really pegged this, and I hope people really enjoy it.
I do agree that it's unique. I've seen probably hundreds of paranormal shows, paranormal documentaries, and things like that. And this one had probably the most evidence that I've seen in any, because other documentaries and shows will just over dramatize the same thing happening, like the same incident over and over again and stuff. And this does not do that. This has plenty.
Well, and that gets back to what we were saying earlier. And the reason that what separates this location and this film is I don't think there's ever been a location that's been studied for 12, almost 12 years now. So we've had a lot of time to gather
the evidence,
gather the evidence and to file it away. And we have so much stuff documented on audio and video for over a decade, and that separates us. It's not a matter of us bragging or anything like that. It's just a fact, and we have so many years of compiling evidence. It's no surprise that we have a lot of stuff in this film, and raw footage and things that I think the people out there watching are going to really enjoy.
And what you mentioned earlier was very true. Also, people, when they hear you do ghost hunting or paranormal, they're like, "Wow, tell me all about it." And what you don't understand is 90% of it is just nothing. But you pack 10 years into a 5 to 10 minute conversation. It sounds pretty exciting. So whenever I started out doing the paranormal, my mind goes to, and I do marketing for a living, was to brand myself and then get all the evidence I can, but make it very short clips. Like you can go to the website, listen to the audio, watch a short clip of video. People's attention spans are so short; they're interested in it, and they just want to see the evidence and move on. You know, people who upload an hour and a half investigation of random people doing a random location, nobody gives a shit. So they just want to see the stuff and move on. So we were lucky in the fact that we had the opportunity to document so much evidence for so many years that when this came along and the story built, we had all this stuff to kind of back it up.
One of y'all, can you tell us where and when they can see the documentary?
They can go to the website, thehouseinbetween.com, and we have a cool we have a merchandise store there too if anyone wants to get some t-shirts and hoodies and things like that. The film is still available for pre-order. In fact, they're running a pre-order sale. It's $4.99 on iTunes right now to pre-order it. And then, of course, on May 5th, it releases wide to the world. And it'll be on 26 different streaming platforms, including Amazon Prime. And there's a list of all the other ones on the website. There's a ton of them. Comcast, Dish Network I saw on there, and even Sony PlayStation, and there's so many. If you have a smart TV and a smartphone, you can watch this film. So
you should do it. You should watch it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And also, do y'all have any individual projects you want to plug? I know, Brad, you have your podcast.
Yeah, cool, man. I appreciate that opportunity. It's just, you can go to bradcooney.com, and I have, multitude of guests, all genres from hip hop music to rock, paranormal investigators, actors, actresses, all kinds of different. I mix it up as much as I can. It's a lot of fun. I've been doing it for many, many years. So yeah, bradcooney.com, and y'all can follow me on Twitter at bradcooney1. Same thing on Instagram at bradcooney1, and definitely get the film. I think you guys are gonna love it.
Good job, Brad. I like
All
it.
right, y'all need anything to plug?
No, I think I'm excited for everybody to see The House in Between. My personal paranormal group is Smoke and Mirrors. So if you want to check out some evidence of other locations, Smoke and Mirrors PI.com, you can check out some stuff. But mainly, I'm just excited about everybody checking out The House in Between. So go to thehouseinbetween.com. Like Brad said, we got merchandise. If you pre-order, there's only a couple days left. It is $4.99. It's going to jump up after that. But we really want people to enjoy the film, and just, even if you're a skeptic, watch it and let us know what your views are on it. I mean, we put a lot of work into this, a lot of time, a lot of effort. We did our due diligence on every level. So we're excited for people to take away some good stuff from it.
Well, thank y'all for being on the show, and I'm going to be plugging it myself. I'm going to try to get this episode out before release, and I'll let y'all know about that. And I have to give a shout out to City Secrets podcast, which is coming soon. It's another local one. And Pharaoh Wizards, which I have mentioned before on the show, is a podcast where they're going back and playing old Nintendo 64 games and reviewing them. Yeah. But yeah, thanks again for being on the show, and I hope I can keep in touch.
Definitely, man. Thanks for having us. Definitely keep in touch. Real quick shout out Corey Frost again, our editor, who's awesome. Kendall Welpton, this is an amazing cinematographer and director, and Steve Gonzalez, of course. Everybody knows Steve. My boy John Bullard, and all the rest of the team: Eileen, Sabrina, Amy Bullard, just Aaron. There's so many people to thank, man. So we appreciate you having us.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Bye.